Not to sound super egotistical, but today's video is all about me because I'm going to tell you guys my 5 favorite draft targets for the Broncos. Because if you watch our draft content, I always try to come from the angle of what I think Sean and George Payton are doing. Not, here's what I would do if I was GM, because I'm not the GM, so who cares? But today, I am going to be more or less the GM. And about 95% of these takes I'm going to give are what I would do as the GM versus what I think the Broncos are going to do as the GM. So before we look at my top 5 draft targets for Denver, I just want to get the no-brainers out of the way because they're not going to be included in this, but obviously if they were there, I would take them. Ashton Jeanty, Tyler Warren, Mason Graham, Jalen Walker. I don't expect these 4 guys to escape the top 10 at this rate, but if by some draft miracle a picture of them with a bong mask on their face comes out on Wednesday, then yeah, if they fall to 20, I'm making that pick. But for the sake of this video, let's assume these 4 guys do not come anywhere near 20. So with that being said, we'll start at number 5, where I've got Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolen. Let me tell you a little bit about each player, and then I'll tell you why I like them for the Broncos and just in general. So Nolen, 6'3", 300 pounds. He was a big-time recruit coming out of the state of Tennessee, goes to A&M. Jimbo Fisher gets fired. He transfers to Ole Miss for his junior year, where he only plays 1 year for Lane Kiffin and then enters this year's NFL draft. He was awesome last year for the Rebels. He was a first-team All-American, first-team All-SEC. It is hard to find 300-pound defensive tackles who have 5+ sacks in a season. Those guys just do not enter every single year's draft. It's very difficult to find pass rushers from the interior of the defensive line. It makes them highly coveted, which is why he cracks my top 5. 14 tackles for loss last year, 6.5 sacks, 35 pressures. Those are going to be metrics that GMs and scouts and coaches get drawn to because there is no worse place for a quarterback to be pressured from than right up the middle. And so why not let the rich get richer in Denver? You've got Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper and Zach Allen coming off the edge. How about you bring some pressure right up the gut, and there is nowhere for Patrick Mahomes to run or hide, because we saw with the Eagles and the Buccaneers beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the best way to do it is not in a shootout, but by applying pressure on Mahomes without overcommitting by blitzing 5-6 players or something like that, but getting to the quarterback with 4. This could be a huge staple of that for Denver to start getting on top of the AFC West. So I like Walter Nolen a lot. If there's going to be a con, it's just that he can be a little bit inconsistent at times. There are games where I wouldn't say no-shows, but he doesn't look like the 20th overall pick. And then there's games where he puts together a 6.5 sack campaign, and he's a no-doubter round 1 player. But I love the idea of bringing in some youth on the interior D-line. DJ Jones signs a 3-year contract, but he's 30 years old, and he doesn't play 75% of snaps. So why not get a nice rotation going between Jones, Franklin Myers, Malcolm Roach, and Walter Nolen opposite of Zach Allen, and just completely unleash hell on every single team Denver faces this year? Who's with me? So that's my number 5 player for the Broncos at pick number 20. At number 4, I'm going to go with South Carolina safety Nick Emmanwori. There are 2 great safeties in this class in my eyes, Malachi Starks and Nick Emmanwori. Depending on who you ask, you'll get varied results as to who the number 1 safety is. Some background on Emmanwori, though, 6'3", 220. That's a very large safety. That's more of a small linebacker compared to a traditional safety size. Despite that 6'3", 220-pound frame, he ran a 4.38 40-yard dash. He is one of the best athletes in this class, pound for pound. So if you are looking for a you can't teach speed type of prospect, he's your man. But he's not just a great athlete, because that usually is the catch of track star but not a football player. No, he's got the best of both worlds going, right? Where he is a very good athlete, but look at the production he had as well for the Gamecocks. First off, he steps in as a freshman, a true freshman that is an All-American, first one to do so at USC since Jadeveon Clowney. And over his 3 years in Columbia, 6 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, a couple of pick sixes last year, 17 pass breakups. We're talking about someone who can back up the athleticism with great production as well. So, what's the catch, right? Why isn't this guy viewed as one of the best pure prospects in this class? Some people can get nitpicky about not the tackling, but the angles and the pursuit he takes to players, and that because he's big, fast, and strong, he's gotten away with that in college, and he may not have the greatest instincts and base at the next level to go up against guys who are also big, fast, and strong. It's not that big of a concern for me. He was awesome. Don't overthink it. Saw a good football player, will be a good football player. And I think inserting him with Brandon Jones and Talanoa Hufanga into that safety room would be the missing piece. Not that the safety room has a whole bunch of loose ends to it, but there's not a lot of confidence in my eyes beyond Jones and Hufanga. And Hufanga's coming off, a couple of injuries the last few years, including a torn ACL. I still like the signing. I'm still confident in him, but if you are looking for a little bit more depth and insurance and you want to deploy more 3 safety looks, Emmanwori would be a great prospect to pair either with Hufanga for years to come and replace Brandon Jones, who's got 2 years left on his deal, or if Hufanga just can't quite bounce back to his pre-injury form, well, you've got a replacement on your roster already from the draft. Before we look at numbers 3, 2, and 1, if you think the Broncos can win the AFC West, because they appear to be 1 year ahead of schedule when it comes to where they wanted everyone to be after taking Bo Nix, show me by hitting that thumbs up button down below. This is going to be a surprise if you have followed our coverage closely. At number 3, I'm going to go with Kaleb Johnson. Remember at the beginning of the video I said this is a video all about me and it's 95% what I would do versus what I think the Broncos would do. Here's where that 5% comes in, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of traction between Johnson and the Broncos. And I think a reason why is that he may not be that, you ready for it, joker that Sean Payton has been pursuing all offseason. I still think he is the number 2 running back in this class, and he's going to be an awesome back at the next level, which is why he's still in my top 3. But some background a little bit on Johnson. First off, he's only got really 1 season of starting experience, so it just doesn't give teams a ton of tape to look at beyond 2024. In that season, though, I think the number that jumps out to me the most when it's respect Kaleb Johnson, it is the defenses he went up against, the stacked boxes, in an offense that ranked 130th out of 134 FBS teams in pass attempts. More or less, every single time he got in the backfield, the defense knew they were going to run the ball. And despite that knowledge, despite being told what the offense is going to do, he averaged 6.4 yards per carry. I know he may not be as fast as Omarion Hampton, and the two have similar builds, and he may not have the receiving stats that Hampton had, but I see a great running back. And right now the Broncos are in the market for a great running back. And 1,500 yards, 21 touchdowns. This is a pinch me because I'm not dreaming moment here. At pick 20, yeah, I'd be comfortable with that pick. Now, I think that teams are going to be a little bit reserved about using a first-round pick on Johnson because he doesn't quite have that home run threat to his game where he could just rattle off a 70-yard touchdown run, although he had plenty of long runs last year. Not to say he can't do that, but he doesn't have that true top-end, long speed. I'd rather have a guy that 9 times out of 10 converts on a 3rd and 4 run than someone who once every 3 to 4 games rattles off a 75-yard run. And Johnson, to me, feels that 9 out of 10 times can get the job done on 3rd and short and keep the drive alive. So to me, this would be an outstanding day 2 draft pick. I can see why he doesn't go round 1 because running backs don't often go round 1. And if they do, they really got to have an extra home run element to his game. And that might not pop out when watching film. But I think we're going to look back and go, oh, that's kind of like how Nick Chubb didn't go round 1 because he didn't have that long top speed. Same as Derrick Henry. But now we look back and go, that was silly. They should have gone round 1. All right, before we look at the number 2, and number 1 top 5 players for me and the Broncos, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier. Even for hard to get playoff seats, prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. So if you want to go to a Nuggets game, or you want to go to an Avs game, or a Rockies game, or any other sporting event in your area, make sure you check out Game Time first, because they are giving Broncos Country $20 off their first purchase. With last-minute deals, save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. So visit Game Time today and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with them. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So let's switch gears and move on to number 2 on my list as we make our way towards the number 1 player for the Broncos in my eyes. At number 2, I've got Michigan tight end Colston Lovelin. I sat at my desk and debated Johnson or Loveland between 3 and 2. But I'm going to give the slight tiniest of edge to Loveland, although I don't say this with a ton of confidence because I still like Johnson a lot. I got a little bit of a man crush going on right now. But let's just pick one and go with it here. So some background on the Idaho native, so a little bit of a homecoming for him if he goes back to the Rocky Mountain region. 6'5", 248 pounds. A little bit on the slender-ish side of a frame, and that can cause him to get pushed around a little bit when he's on the line of scrimmage and he's run blocking. So I don't look at Loveland as someone who could be like a George Kittle type run blocker. You know what I mean? Now, he was a 3-year starter for the Wolverines and made a big impact in their national championship run. He was J.J. McCarthy's number 1 go-to guy. And despite having a shoulder injury, knocking him out for 3 games last year, and horrible quarterback play that just set Michigan football back offensively 100 years, he still put up some pretty solid numbers, which we'll look at in a moment here. But I put Loveland at number 2 because I feel that he could really bring that true, and I hate saying this word again, joker that Sean Payton was searching for when he went into this offseason. Because what Loveland can do is provide a ton of flexibility and versatility and almost like a Swiss Army knife for where you can deploy him. You want to put him in the slot? By all means, do so. That's not foreign territory to him. You want to put him on the line of scrimmage? He can do that as well. But most importantly, what he brings, and I think what Sean and Bo would love to have, is a guy who can just read defenses. This is where I get slight Travis Kelce vibes. And the vibe is Kelce and Mahomes always seem to be on the same page where they don't break the huddle and they know what route Kelce's going to run exactly. Travis Kelce's going to make it up as he goes. He's going to see what the defense is in, and he's going to find the soft spot. That's what Loveland did so well at Michigan. And what makes him even more special is when he got the ball in his hands, he is fast, he is tough to bring down, and he is going one direction. So that to me screams Sean Payton, joker with the ball in his hands, and joker when it comes to being able to use him across multiple different fronts and formations offensively. Now, signing Evan Ingram in free agency gives Denver a little bit of leeway to wait on a tight end because it's not so pressing for 2025. But I could see Payton looking at Loveland as that is my tight end for the next 8 to 10 years. That's Bo Nix's go-to guy for the next 8 to 10 years. And even though we signed Ingram to a 2-year deal, that's not going to get in the way of me doing what's best for this team long term. So I've got Loveland at number 2. Now we're going to look at number 1 in just a moment, but between Johnson and Colston coming in at 3 and 2, what do you feel like is a bigger need? Running back or tight end? To me, actions speak louder than words, and Denver bringing on a tight end in free agency and not a running back indicates that back is the bigger need in round number 1. But give me your thoughts down below in the comment section. At number 1, I've got UNC running back Omarion Hampton. Does anyone else fall trap to when the same player gets mocked to your team over and over and over again? You just start to look at it more optimistically as you get closer to the draft. And that's what's happened here with Hampton, because it just feels like it is going to be the pick at 20. So now I'm at the stage of not coping, but just talking myself into it more and more with the frequency I see him mocked to the Broncos. So he's got a similar size to Kaleb Johnson, 6 foot, 221, maybe a little bit smaller. Johnson added 10 pounds between the combine and his pro day. But what Hampton brings to the table is really boiled down to three things: size, strength, and if I could go all caps, aggression. He is someone that looks to fall forward. He is someone that fights for the extra yard. He is someone that is going to make defenders regret tackling him. He is a violent runner. He is not some gadget scat back. But he's not just this bowling ball, right? He's more of like a cannonball because he moves with some velocity. That's why he is not just this goal line, like fat fullback type of guy. No, he runs like a 200-pound player with the size of a 225-pound player. So why isn't he going earlier? Because Ashton Genty's in this draft class. That's why. Ashton Genty last year had 1,900 yards after contact. Let me break it down this way. The number one rushing leader last year was Ashton Genty. The number 2 rushing leader last year was Ashton Genty after contact. So a little bit unlucky for Hampton to be in the same draft class as him, but might be lucky for Denver because now he falls to 20 because the next or the biggest RB needy team takes the Boise State product. Hampton is, I wouldn't say like a generational type back, but he is getting slept on because his name is not Ashton Genty. But that's great news for Denver. I mean, how about this? If that's not enough for you, look at this very rare class he's in. Over the last 10 years, there are only 8 running backs who at the combine weighed in over 220 pounds and ran below a 4.5 40-yard dash. This is the rare combination of size and speed. There's 2 guys in this class, which, by the way, speaks volumes to how good this running back class is. Hampton and Quinshawn Judkins. Last year, Isaac Guerendo, who went to the 49ers in a day 3 pick, was the only one. Before that, you got to go back to 2020 with Jonathan Taylor. I think he's had a pretty good career so far. Saquon Barkley was decent last year for the Eagles. Kalen Bailey, he is your outlier here. Darius Geis just couldn't get out of his own way. And then there's Zeke. Not bad company to be in right here. Barkley, Taylor, Zeke. 3 out of the last, 6 running backs going into this year's combine to meet that criteria. I like my odds if I'm Denver going, that's the company that Hampton is in right there. But why do I have Omarion Hampton at number 1 and not Kaleb Johnson? For me, it's the 5% difference maker, and it's the receiving ability, right? Hampton just brings more receiving options to the game. 38 grabs last year, 373 yards. Those are not eye-popping numbers, but keep in mind college football is not designed to get your running back a lot of receptions. Now, Johnson, unfortunately, just didn't have that opportunity at Iowa, and if he has a great NFL career as a receiving back, we can look back and go, lesson learned. Don't, ding an Iowa running back for lack of receptions when he plays at Iowa and they can barely complete a pass to a receiver. So for me, that slight uptick in receiving ability for Hampton, I think makes him a slightly better fit for Sean Payton and the Broncos. But I'd be more than happy with either one. So who is your number 1 draft target? Let me know in the comment section below. I want to hear from you guys because it's always fun to, break down whatever you have to say and do some research on your favorite prospects. One honorable mention I'm going to toss out there. This is from producer Sam. Jahad Campbell. He kind of put me on this because linebacker doesn't really pop up a list of team needs for Denver. But if you want to go best player available, Jahad Campbell was the best player on Alabama's defense last year. He has some pass rush upside to his game where you can put him at edge, but he traditionally played inside linebacker. So you get a little bit of a Swiss Army knife. I think this is just Drew Sanders on steroids, but don't actually drug test him, NFL. And we saw the Broncos take Drew Sanders, So here's Drew Sanders 2.0. They haven't really gotten much out of Sanders yet, and that's mostly due to the Achilles injury, which is just a big fat bummer for him. But I wonder if Denver, if Omarion Hampton and Colston Lovelin are gone and they're like, hey, if we're going to go pure BPA, Campbell with Dre Greenlaw, since Singleton's coming off a torn ACL and is on the wrong side of 30, that could be a great duo for the next 4 to 6 years. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's episode. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to sign off and see you all next time.